Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Brandon Bray. I am one of the product managers working on Microsoft Mesh. And later in the presentation, John Campbell will be coming on stage to finish the presentation. We're here to talk about Microsoft Mesh. And if you've been in any of the previous presentations about it, we've talked quite a bit about how users can collaborate in new ways. In our presentation today, we're going to focus on deploying Mesh into your organization, so taking a particular viewpoint from an administrator, and then how developers and creators can customize and create new environments for Mesh itself. So we're taking it from a different user's endpoint. So exactly what we said, we'll start with an overview of Mesh if you haven't been in any of the previous presentations. I'd also encourage anyone who hasn't seen Mesh directly to go down to the booth and try a demo. We're showing both the experience through a laptop as well as through VR headsets. And so I'll spend my time talking about the deployment, and then John will be talking about customizing the environment fully with all of the capabilities that we have. So start with our overview. So first question, just out of the audience here, who has been using Mesh already in your organization, or is this totally new to you? So. It's all new. This is audio. Awesome. We're going to have quite a bit of fun. I hope that by the end of today, you'll see how easy it is to get started. So I'll start with just a quick video introducing Mesh, and then we'll go deeper.
Sometimes hybrid meetings can feel a little impersonal.
Hello?
Avatars for Microsoft Teams gives people the choice to show up how they want, helping them feel more comfortable and included. But can we take digital presence a step further?
Just a minute.
Immersive spaces for teams help interactions feel more engaging, more connected, and more natural.
Great job, Miriam.
Yeah, nice presentation.
But what if we could take it even further by building a custom immersive experience just for your organization? Microsoft Mesh elevates orientations, trainings, and employee experiences by transcending time and space. No matter where you are, you can come together in one place. Connect like never before with Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Mesh.
All right, so I'd like to introduce the three pillars of the Mesh product. The first two are fully integrated into Teams. And our first one is avatars. This was released pretty much a year ago, and it gives you the ability to join a Teams call and replace your video or your profile picture with an avatar in its place. It's a midpoint between being fully on camera and being fully off camera. And you have the ability to customize that avatar to look like yourself, dress it in your wardrobe and such. And then the other opportunity that was just released 3 months ago is what we call an immersive space. And this takes a Teams meeting up to another level. You're able to take a video grid and physically go into an immersive space with your avatar, walk around, collaborate, and socialize with other colleagues in that same meeting. And so we'll take a quick look at both of those. The third opportunity is the full Mesh product, which gives customers the ability to fully customize an environment and tune it to scenarios that are unique to your business. And you'll get to see that as well. So just going in, quick on each of these. Avatars is both a place where it uses all of the technology to lip sync, follow your movements, and then give you emotions by being able to raise your hand. It's tied into the Teams emoticons, so when you're doing a thumbs up, your avatar actually shows that as well. So it gives it more presence in the meeting, even if you're not on camera. And with immersive spaces, we're really focusing on this idea that in hybrid work environments, you can't just depend on video grids. You want to search for new ways of collaborating and meeting with each other. And this is that opportunity. Out of the box, Mesh provides several environments, and we'll be providing more over time. So you have this ability to go socialize, mingle with each other, and still participate in meetings. You can almost think of these as a virtual conference room. As a group of colleagues come together into a conference room in the real world, you can also go into a conference room in the virtual world. And with the full Mesh product, you get the ability to customize and build entirely new opportunities. This includes things like building trainings, where you can actually create physical environments for people to walk around. Think of going through the company museum and learning about the company's history, learning about the company's culture. Or you can build entire environments that are built specifically for presentations, town halls, and company events. So with that, I'm going to switch over and give you a quick tour of many of the UI aspects and experience of Mesh that will be referenced throughout today's presentation. So first thing I'd like to do is actually just give you a quick look at the admin portals and understand licenses and other things that you'll need for Mesh. So the first thing that we'll talk about is Mesh is part of existing Teams licenses. So if you already have Teams deployed in your organization, you can basically expect to be able to use Mesh already. Within the licenses, you'll see avatars for Teams as well as immersive spaces for Teams. And those are, checked and, made on by default. So pretty much all users who have Mesh, who already have Teams can use Mesh. And then the integration into Teams is done by two apps. There's the Avatars app. And this gives you the ability to customize your avatar as well as turn on your avatar in a meeting. And then the Mesh app itself. So these are deployed. They're fully first-party apps. And so a customer is able to use these without any change. So I'm going to give you a quick demo of all three of these products. So I'm going to do a quick Meet Now meeting. And the first thing that we'll do is turn on an avatar. And you'll see that it loads. You'll see my avatar here. I choose to dress up like my avatar, so I'm wearing the red hoodie just to match my avatar. And so when I go into the meeting, you'll see, like anything else, instead of your video stream, you have your avatar. I can raise my hand and or react in different ways, and my avatar usually actually follows that. I guess not today. But your avatar typically will follow those emoticons. And then the next thing I can do is switch into an immersive space here. So moving into that second product category, I'll just do an immersive space.
For everyone, like if one person chooses or open, is it only the meeting organizer that can do that, or can anybody?
Question is, can anyone in the meeting join the immersive space, or is it only the meeting organizer? It's actually anyone in the meeting can do this. So here we go. It's loading the environment. And what will show up for other participants in the meeting is they'll see that you're in a 3D space. So as I go into the space now, they'll see that you're in a 3D space, almost like as if you were in a conference room. So it just calls out that that's where you are. And see, here is our environment. We call this Lake House. If you go down to the demo at the booth, you'll have an opportunity to fully explore Lake House and also explore it in a VR headset. So that gives you a quick thing to experience. One of the benefits of using Mesh in an immersive space is that you have spatial audio. And something that distinguishes Mesh from a Teams meeting. You can actually talk to people as a side conversation without interrupting the entire meeting. And that's done by proximity. When you walk up to someone who's close by, you can talk to them and hear them. All right, so I'm going to close out of that. And the last thing I'll now do is the immersive, or the full Mesh demo. And for this, I'll just introduce you to what we call the Mesh Portal. And so Mesh Portal has a few components. First, it has kind of a calendar where you can create new events. But a big part of this are the environments. Out of the box, we provide 2 environments we named Oasis and Meadow. But you can create your own, and those are put together in a collection. And kind of a quick view at what we use in our team, we call our self-host collection. You can see quite a number of custom environments that we've created of our own, and we'll talk further about those later today. But a quick walkthrough of creating an event. I will come here and I'll just go ahead and create the event. So we're going to do an M365 demo. We're going to start it a little in the past, and I'm going to choose a single room. We talked about single room versus multi-room in yesterday's presentation, and I'm going to choose to run this in Meadow and create that event. So this actually creates something and sends an invite to your email, as with all the people that were invited, and uses Microsoft Graph to manage those meetings. I'm now going to just show there's an app specifically for Mesh. You can download that from the Microsoft Store, and I'm going to switch into the app now. This is what it looks like when it's loaded. That meeting that we just created, can now just choose join, and same experience as you saw within Teams. I can now go into that fully customized space, and this is our Meadow environment, which we think of as a great environment for both presentations and like big kind of mingle events with a lot of individuals. So that was a very quick kind of view of all of the different UIs that you'll see for managing and using Mesh. And with that, I'll go directly back to our presentation. So that gives you a grounding of all the things that you'll care about as an administrator to think about. So let's talk about deploying and managing Mesh. The TLDR for Mesh itself is that we wanted to make sure that all the decisions you needed to make to deploy Mesh were compatible with everything that you've already done. So for most companies and organizations, if you have a commercial tenant, you will have Mesh already available in your organization because the settings that you've created made it compatible already. So, and start with, the promise and value proposition for Mesh is that it's really built on top of the M365 promise of trust, privacy, that you have manageability and fully compliance. So we integrate with all of the existing things like Entra, Teams, to ensure that you have all of the features that you want. About 2 months ago, we had ISO compliance. Our product was released in January, so within a month we had certification for ISO. And we're going through the SOC compliance audit right now. So we'll continue our focus on adding more and more compliance certifications as well. And that continues with other aspects like accessibility, making sure that people who have any disabilities are still able to use this product. And just to kind of emphasize, that in itself is quite a challenge because we're building new mediums in 3D where there aren't prior art for accessibility. So beyond that, we integrate with quite a lot of the platform that M365 already depends on. And so I mentioned Graph, but we leverage Azure. SharePoint is used for storing all of the custom environments that you have. So those collections that I showed you are actually M365 groups. And they're managed the same way that a Teams group or any other M365 group is done. And we fully go into Microsoft Intune for device management. So our purpose here is to make sure that every decision that you've made, whether you've created policies for meetings before or not, that we respect those existing features and bring those to Mesh. So we're lowering the barrier for any organization to support Mesh to begin with. A pretty important opportunity for a new product in any market. So a quick explanation of how everything comes together. Mesh collection in the center here is an M365 group. And so you're familiar with M365 groups as a team or an outlet group. And so you can add Mesh to an existing group or create a new collection on its own and then attach other M365 properties to that Mesh collection to begin with. Within that group, the main thing that you're managing is a set of environments, and we'll go through seeing what it takes to work with those environments shortly. We give you the ability to fully customize those environments and include scripts, and that leads to leveraging Azure subscriptions to run code in your organization that can leverage business data or custom code as you'd like. And that ties over to Azure, so you're running that Azure subscription out of your own organization as well. And all of that leads into these product endpoints, whether it's Teams, going into Outlook or the store, or running on VR headsets. And to begin with, on the left is this toolkit, which we'll be showing later today. For licensing, I kind of gave you a quick preview of that, but the first thing I'll point out is that if you have a Teams license for basically all of the standard commercial licenses, avatars and immersive spaces is included. The GCC and our education licenses don't include them today. So just if you're wondering why it might not show up, it's going to be either that the admin has already configured your environment so that it isn't available, or it's one of these licenses. By default, Mesh is available. For the fully customized experience, we've included this with the Teams Premium product. So if you have a Teams Premium license, you'll start seeing the ability to load that app and going into that Mesh portal. If you're using the Meta Quest headset or any of the VR headsets, but specifically Meta Quest, and you'd like to do device management, they have a product called Quest for Business, and I'll spend a little bit more time talking about that. So I mentioned this before, the Teams is enabled by this app named Avatars within the Teams Admin Center. You can change the assignments for it too if you want to selectively choose which end users have access to that app or not. And the same is true for immersive spaces. The name of that app is Mesh within the Teams Admin Center store. And finally, the standalone app is managed, really basically once you've assigned a license, that's all you need. And you'll go to the portal, which is mesh.cloud.microsoft, to create those events or to manage collections, update environments and such. You'll get the app from the Microsoft Store, and from there you can launch into it. So our terms of service, basically when you start either immersive spaces for the first time or the Mesh app from the Microsoft Store, the first time you see it, you'll be asked to agree to the terms of service. This is actually kind of non-standard for M365 products because the license is actually previously agreed to by the organization. But it's specifically because we have one service right now that runs outside of the M365 terms of service. And that service handles all of the audio exchanges. We're currently in the process of migrating that over to the same service that manages Teams audio. And that will lead to quite a few simplifications. And once we do that, we'll be able to take this terms of service and users won't see it anymore. But for anyone who is curious or has this question, many admins will look at this, they'll kind of have this, what is this moment. I'll just kind of remind, the way that we have constructed this, like we're still holding to all of the M365 guarantees and promises around handling data, audio, and privacy. So with that, I'm just kind of curious, how many in this audience would be interested in using avatars or immersive spaces in their organization? Awesome, we've got 100%. I love it. And so we'd also love to hear from you either after this presentation or at the demo booth to hear what you want to do with it in your organization. So talking about Quest, this is a new device. Certainly it comes from Meta, that also the company that changed their name to really make sure that they could land that they care about this new category. And like any device, you want to be able to manage this. Right now, what they're offering is basically full device management from an organizational owned device perspective. And with that, you get something called Quest for Business. They'll provide extra support and such. One thing that we're doing on Mesh is making sure that everything that Meta is doing for device management along the way, that we're tracking it and making sure that we fully support it in new ways. And so one thing that's very important is Microsoft itself is working through all of the processes to ensure that our organization will fully support and engage with Meta Quest devices. And right now, Mesh supports Meta Quest 2 and Meta Quest 3. And that also goes to Intune. Intune is equally supporting these devices. And Mesh itself is following that. So we'll talk about some of the headaches in a second, but one of them for sure is conditional access. If your company has policies set for devices where, for instance, the device has to be running on a specific network, or the device has to respect specific content policies. Right now, Mesh doesn't understand those policies, and so we're working in our current quarter sprint to ensure that we can start responding to that. So you'll see errors, sometimes depending on your company's policy, with loading Mesh on the Quest headset. If you see that, it's almost certainly going to be due to conditional access, and we're aware of it, we're fixing it. So out of curiosity in the room, how many people have Quest headsets or have used them with your company? All right, one or two. So that's fantastic. Looks like a new opportunity. If you haven't used it, please, again, go check it out at the booth. So lastly, just some headwinds. The first one I mentioned is related to the terms of service. We're currently using firewall ports that are beyond the standard M365 firewall port recommendations. And so some companies already have closed those off. We will eventually use the exact same firewall ports that Teams does. So once again, simplifying those decisions, and that's due within the next few months. Using conditional access is another one that should be addressed within the next few months too. And then lastly, when you want to invite anyone into an immersive space or into these custom world events, it requires users within your current tenant. So we don't support guests or anonymous users the same way Teams meetings do. And that is something that we'll continue working throughout this year to bring forward. And with that, I'm going to invite my colleague here, John, to show you what it takes to fully customize Mesh.
All right. Great, thank you, Brandon. Good morning, folks. I'm John Campbell, Director of Product Management from the Mesh team. I'm here to talk about customizing with Mesh Toolkit. So before I jump into Toolkit, which is really a developer experience, I did want to mention, and there's a lightning talk that's going to show this later today, actually, over in the demo, the booth area, that anybody can customize Mesh. We want to make sure that every information worker at every company can get in and make lightweight customizations without writing any code. So when you get these environments that are all about creating deeper connections or running a great presentation, you can do things like insert images, you can insert a screen share, think of like a big video screen you can put in the environment to share your monitor, text, movies. And so you can put those in the environment, place them, size them the way you want, rotate them around and get them, and put as many in there as you want, and just give it simple URLs to images and stuff. So there's a great customization story for lightweight customizations that anybody can do. And we talked about that in past presentations, so you can go see the recordings or swing by the demo booth or the lightning talk, grab any of us to learn more. Today I want to talk about fuller customization using the Mesh Toolkit. And so the toolkit is really a set of packages in Unity, and Unity is a very common sort of 3D development tool. And these packages in Unity sort of together create the toolkit, and it really has 4 key components. You've got scripting, physics, give you some graphics and performance tools, and then we also allow you to bring web content into the experience. And again, all of these run on the PC or on the headset devices from Meta. And so I wanted to talk about scripting first. And so scripting is really where you bring your custom logic and you start bringing behaviors into the environments. When you look at a lot of things people have built, they are these very immersive and interactive experiences. You may walk in there could be a button and you click it, doors open, or certain things materialize in the environment to immerse you. All of this is done through logic via scripting. And there's kind of 2 components to scripting. You can break this down and think of there's visual scripting, and that's really meant for newer developers. Unity has a really powerful visual scripting engine where you can pick your objects and set some properties and wire up inputs to outputs and get some basic logic going. Great place to start if you want to do some simple things. If you want to go do more advanced behaviors, then cloud scripting is a more full code experience. And cloud scripts, when you write them, they run in the Azure cloud. Again, we are part of the M365 stack, so security, compliance, all of those things are what you would expect from an enterprise-grade product. Cloud scripts run in Azure, they connect directly to Mesh, and they let you do more advanced things like bringing in data for your backend. So we've seen customers build solutions that bring in real business data, overlaid into 3D environments, and then they can sort of move things around and do what-if analysis. So just a very different and powerful way to start exploring data and building different things specific to your business into the environments. Next up is physics. And so this is really a backbone and kind of the heart of when you think about interactivity or when you think about what's driving simulations. You know, everybody understands gravity and when things collide with one another, and you know, having these types of experiences in an immersive environment just make things a lot more real, a lot more fun to be there, and just a lot more immersive. And so Unity has a set of physics features. All of them are directly integrated with Mesh into the scripting. And it's got a ton of effects. I'm not going to go through all of them here, but there are things like bouncy surfaces, there are sticky bodies, you know, friction, collisions, explosions, velocity and acceleration, all of those things you need to sort of build a compelling experience. And I'm actually going to demo some of this in just a few minutes. The next step is performance. You know, as we sort of say at Microsoft, performance is a feature of itself. Everybody wants things to be fast and smooth. It is particularly important in 3D immersive experiences. You don't want your frame rate dropping and those things, because if you have a VR headset on and you start having frame rate drops, it can lead to things like motion sickness. And so we wanted to make sure that we gave folks a couple of very useful performance tools, help you diagnose and find problems. And so the first thing we've got is the Content Performance Analyzer. So when you actually bring up the Unity developer environment, you know, right in there, there's sort of a window where you can hit play and actually go and experience, you know, your environment right in Unity. And this will give you a sense of, hey, where maybe there's too much data in the scene, and you need to thin things out a little bit. You can start seeing where things drop off, and that'll help you customize the environment. And then once you've got that, you can take that environment and upload it into Mesh and start actually using it in the Mesh app. And in the Mesh app, we also give you the visual profiler. And so that's going to let you, you know, you can pop that up on the screen when you're walking around in the environment and you're using it, and you can start to see things like, you know, what's the frame rate, and it'll give you a sense of where, if you're hitting performance challenges, where they might be in the scene, really help you, you know, start to diagnose those problems. And then the last thing I want to mention is web content. There's a lot of content and data and productivity today that's sort of in the 2D world, and we want to start giving the ability to bring that into 3D. And so a really simple way to do that is through a web control. So we have a Web View 2 component. You can drop it in an environment, you know, give it a URL to a page, and you can start showing that content there. It's interactive, it's scrollable. Through the power of scripting, you can actually grab data and you know, interlace it with different objects that are in the 3D environment. And so connecting web slate data really starts to get that 2D data into that 3D world and build some pretty immersive experiences there through scripting. And let me switch machines here and actually jump in and show a demo. Now this is not a developer conference, so I'm not going to go in and write code and upload things to Mesh, but I want to show you some more custom experiences that were generated using the systems that I've been talking about. So I am in an environment that we built called the Science Museum. And you know, I can kind of look around here, and we'll explore the environment in just a minute, but this is a place where folks on the team have just created different, you know, you can think of them as little sets that show off different physics features and different things Mesh is capable of. And I'm just going to show you 2 or 3 today. So the first one is really a puzzle, and I'll get a little bit closer to it. And the idea here is it's a physics-based simulation. There's a red ball, it's dropping down. You can see it sort of gliding along. Some of these are interactive. You can see the cursor changes. That means I can interact, and you kind of see this nice highlight. And the idea here is pretty simple. Get the ball to go into one of the 2 buckets. And you can see some of these surfaces are bouncy. Well, you'll see in just a second. So let me start to actually move this around and see if I can do this. So it goes down. You'll see it hits that surface, but okay, so we've got it there. Let me drag this over a little bit. And here's another bounce. I don't guarantee that I'll be able to solve this in real time during the demo, but I might be able to get close. And we'll grab another plate. Whoops. Move it a little lower, maybe it'll get a little bit high. Maybe it'll get a little bit better bounce on this one. Let's see how we do. Almost. Darn it. Okay, here's another thing you can do. If you can't figure it out, you can always think outside the box because it's interactive. Maybe I can just sort of bring this over and dump it in the bucket. There we go. I'm not into sort of puzzle solving in real time, but a little bit of out-of-the-box thinking gets the job done. All right, so, and these are the kinds of things, simple experience, physics-based, really easy to set up. And if you think about when you have these morale events or you have team bonding events, particularly with hybrid and remote workers, it can be tough to do. But this, we've had people on team build, for example, escape rooms, and you've got different puzzles you can solve in there. And so you can imagine sort of at the end of a presentation, people come into an environment, you have the event, and then maybe the doors in the back open up and there's another room where there's games and people can go socialize and kind of play and bond as a team. So that's where these things come in really handy in a work context. Mesh does not set out to be sort of a video game. We really want to make people more productive at work, but we think bonding and deeper connection among team members is a big part of the value prop. So I'm going to walk around the rest of this museum. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm just holding down the left mouse, and you can kind of see I get this beam and I can teleport. And since this is a pretty big environment, I'm going to do this a couple of times just to go a little bit faster here. And so now let's just slide over. And I'll go into third-person view. And so here's kind of the main area in this environment. And there's various toys on the ground, and I can sort of grab them and interact just by clicking on them. There are different various simulations here. This one shows waves. So I just give this a spin, and you can kind of start to understand how waves travel. It's definitely a science museum, sort of set up by science geeks, which are near and dear to my heart. And so we'll move over here, and I'll show you another one. And this is about mass and gravity. And let me just rotate. I'll go back into first-person view so you can see a little bit better. And you can see here we've got the sun. It's sort of like this solar system, but I can reach in and interact with these objects and move them around. I'll grab this big one here and kind of pull it over. You can see they collide with one another. I've got this astronaut, kind of this rag doll, and he's still affected by gravity. I've got control, but I can pull him out and drop, and you'll see he just sort of hits the floor there, right? And I can pick him up. Let me just, mouse up a little for you, grab him, pull him up, and I can toss him back in, and now he's back in the gravity field. And so you get quite a lot of control. There's a lot of different things you can simulate. I will show you one more for fun. So let me go to the upstairs level. I'll switch back into, I'm just pushing the V key on my keyboard, and switching back into third-person view. And as you can see, I'm running all of this from a PC. We think it's really important to bring Mesh to where customers are on the devices that they have today. And so you get a great immersive experience here. There could be lots of screens in the environment. I can move around and look at them all, kind of extending really kind of the physical screen real estate without app switching. In a headset, it's a lot more immersive than this, obviously. That's where you get kind of the ultimate immersion. But let me just go over here and show you one more on that theme of games and employees playing and having fun together as part of a team bonding. I'll switch back into first person. So here is air hockey, something everyone's familiar with. Simple things. All of these exhibits have buttons where you can reset the experience by clicking a button. Again, it's just invoking part of the script. And I can grab the control here, slide it over, and give that puck a whack, and you'll see it, behaves the way you would expect it to. And I don't have a second player, but maybe I can fake it. Let's see. There we go. So you can see I scored a point there. And, a lot of fun to start to do these things, and great for teams to get in and experience these. And so that's what I wanted to show off here. And so this environment is available. You can download it and use it. And let me switch back over and talk about how to get started and a few other capabilities that are available in the toolkit. So if you want to learn more about Toolkit, there's a set of rich samples and tutorials that are online today. Starting with on the instructional side, Mesh 101 is a great place to start. It's sort of the basic entry-level thing. It's got step-by-step instructions, really takes you through that tutorial mode. We recently released Mesh 201, and that one's a little bit more advanced, but it's a great example showing a web slate that's got geographical data and various factoids about places, and it's hooked up to a 3D globe. So avatars can come and they can spin the globe around, they can select certain places on the globe, and you'll see more information about them in the web slate. So if you want to bring 2D content into the 3D experience, that's a great one to start with, to learn from. Then we have various other platform and interactive environments for you. The physics effects gallery has got a lot of great stuff in it. Toybox is really popular on the team. And it's got lots of different demonstrations and different artifacts you can play with. Now, one thing I should say about these environments, it's really easy, even if you're not a 3D developer. You know, we ship 2 out of the box by default, and we're going to add more over time. But all of these are pretty easy for anyone just to set up Unity, grab them, and then upload them into Mesh, and you've got more environments there. And the other thing is, a lot of these are modular. So maybe there's a particular thing I like from within Toybox. I can grab just that component and its scripts, and I can move it over and put it in another environment. And so it's a really easy way to kind of get a jump start on creating more content to experience in Mesh. The science building that I showed is there. There's also sort of a cozy tavern-like dart room where people can go and play games and more. And we're going to be adding more and more over time. And so to get started with the toolkit, just get Unity, download it on your machine, and then you can go to GitHub and download everything from Mesh Toolkit is there. It's free, aka /Mesh Creator. Bring all that stuff down. You can use it for free in Unity and build custom environments. You can run them in Unity and play around with them there. When you want to actually use it in Mesh and it's time to upload it into the Mesh, that's where you'll need to have a license. So if you have Teams Premium, you can do it today. If you don't, we would love to invite you to start a 6-month trial with us. It's really easy to get started. Just go to microsoft.com/mesh, and you can get going there. And I wanted to walk through just a few customer examples. You know, we've talked about a lot of things at the conference that various customers and partners have built, and so I wanted to highlight a few examples that we didn't talk about in the last breakout session. I wanted to start with Takeda. A great company. They've been a great partner for Mesh. Early builder. They've built lots of custom environments. They've also used the lake house that Brandon showed in Teams to have some celebratory team moments and team bonding cohesiveness. Custom environments they've created. They've got this beautiful one called the Hirameki Garden, and it's this visual representation of kind of the company's corporate philosophy. And they use that garden and other virtual spaces to help onboard employees, teach them about the business priorities and the culture of Takeda, facilitate belonging and cohesiveness on the team. And again, outcomes from this, the response has been really great. High employee satisfaction, connection to the culture, and more engagement in events that Takeda has. So great story there from Takeda, and similar to how a lot of other folks are using it. 3 other partners I want to touch on. The World Economic Forum. That is a thing we're very proud to be part of. This is in partnership with Accenture, another great collaborator with Mesh that's out there building great solutions for folks and using it themselves as well. We've talked about some of Accenture's scenarios and some other presentations. But the World Economic Forum is a place, probably most of you know, world leaders get together. They talk about various problems facing us all, things like the economy, climate change. And in Mesh, they've created these fantastic environments, multiple different environments, and they link them together and sort of manage them through scripts. And so you can go there and, for example, go into this room and really understand climate change and data about it, see it on a globe, learn about the tipping point, change different variables and see what happens. You can teleport out to the polar ice caps and see different things happening there. So just a much, much more immersive way to tell that story and get people engaged. PwC is another partner. They're bringing employees together, and they've got immersive wellness experiences, and they've got guided and self-led tours and orientations to the company. And then DXC Technology, they're empowering collaboration over a hybrid workforce. And they're a great example of what we call digital twins. And so we see folks modeling real existing physical environments in virtual space. So in this case, they've got different buildings and campuses that maybe geographically in the real world are separate, but you can bring them together in virtual space and have employees come in there to meet and really sort of turbocharge that hybrid and remote work. So with that, I wanted to wrap up and see if there are any questions. And if there are, I'll invite Brandon back up to help us do any Q&A. And feel free to ask us questions about anything in the presentation today or anything else about Mesh.
Any thoughts about when any of this may be available in government community cloud?
So the question was, what about folks that run in secure government clouds like GCC or GCC High maybe? So it's not available there today. It is something we're getting more requests for, and that's something we're going to be looking at, and it will be on our roadmap. It's already on our roadmap, and we're sort of looking at demand as we kind of get the early wave of first adopters. By the way, Mesh is a V1 product. The avatars shipped earlier. The rest of what we've shown you really kind of hit general availability at the end of January of this year. And so that is on our roadmap, and we're going to look at how fast we can get it there. So we're getting a lot of asks from folks to get it in GCC. Any other questions about Mesh? Yeah.
Form factor-wise, is it just running on PC today, or is there a play for like tablets or Macs?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The question was, what about form factors? Is it just on PCs or is it tablets and Macs? So today it runs on PC. It runs on Quest headsets, Quest 2, Quest 3, Quest Pro. Also, the experience you've seen in Teams, since Teams has a Mac client, you'll see that lighting up in Mac as another platform. And we have it on the roadmap to get into tablets and other places as we keep extending into the future. So those are the platforms that are supported today, but we'll get to more as we go. Yes?
Do you plan on adding legs to the avatars?
Great question. You want to take this one, Brandon?
Do we plan on adding legs? It's definitely something that will happen at some point in time. Right now, what we see is most people notice legs missing at the very beginning of the experience, but within a few minutes, it kind of, the focus goes to other things. And when we ask someone after they've been in the environment for 5-10 minutes, legs is not the top priority there. There's many other things that people want from us, and so it's not a high priority at the moment, only because customers who've used it, tend to focus on other things.
Yeah, we will definitely get to legs at some point. You don't need them on the avatar side of the house, but once you get into that immersive experience, it's definitely there. It's a thing. There are some interesting technical challenge and visual challenges to it. For example, the headsets and the hand controllers don't know anything about legs, but we'll get something together there. But again, I think there are other things we're getting a lot of asks for, and you still get a ton of immersiveness out of it, and just a different way to experience events, even if people are sort of floating around in space right now. Any other questions?
I guess, how many of you are planning to go create avatars in Teams? Already did.
Avatar.
So hopefully we've convinced the rest of you.
Question, I heard a rumor that going to soon enable because the camera, the lock-off camera, to take pictures, you would create an avatar that way rather than have to.
So the question is, you heard from somewhere that will enable taking a picture to create your avatar. It's something we're definitely working on. I'll just say that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, folks. We hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
All right.